Okay, this mini workflow looks at environments. We are examining a few different layers of analysis in our topography. And, the first one that you can see here is elevation. And we also have some water flow turned on to help visualize that as well. Just a little extra. And then we can go and change mode. So I'm in the grasshopper panel here on the side. And this next mode is slope. So depending on the intensity of the slope, we get a gradient. And then finally, one more step and we get the upslope area, which we'll explain in a minute or two. So these different modes are pretty interesting. You can change, if I turn on the control points here and create a new divot down here, pull this down, it immediately analyzes all of the different layers. And this is fast because it's a pretty small mesh, but also because we've made some performance improvements. But you can see how that affects all three of these: elevation, slope, and upslope area. So now if I can also elevate the topography. So right now the topography of this analysis is elevated. We can, or not elevated, and we can make it elevated. So that's kind of fun as well. And then we can change the fidelity or the cell size of this analysis. So if I move one step, you can probably see it a little bit better in the slope. Yeah, here, see, you can see all the little cells of the slope. So that's sort of basically what you're getting and you're seeing. If you want to understand what's happening under the hood, we are building what's called an environment in LandKit. We use an environment boundary, a topography, in this case, a surface that's becoming a mesh, using the mesh to brep. And then we are doing our little water flow analysis, so we can change the intensity of that, or we could turn that off if that's sort of not something interesting to us. And then we add different layers. So we add an elevation analysis layer. We add a slope analysis layer and an upslope area layer. And then we visualize that using the draw layer as mesh. So if we hover over that, draw layer as mesh, and so the environment gets created here and it passes through these different components, adding new layers as it goes. And then here we visualize whichever layer is we tell it to. So then this is where we switch modes between elevation, slope, and upslope area. And this visualizes each layer. Now, it does recognize some of these default names, and that's why the color changes just automatically. But you can set up and change the hues of those analysis layers if you want, using either a tint color. So I could do a swatch here and do a pink, for example, and plug that in. And then all of my different analysis layers would be pink. Pretty fun. But I'm going to remove that for now and maybe just leave it there for the next user, which is you. And then we can elevate or not elevate. So what's happening here? We are taking each point, each cell in the environment, and we're analyzing the elevation or the slope of the mesh at that location. And then finally the upslope area. And the upslope area, let's look at that. At any given point on the mesh, the upslope area is representing the number of cells or number of area uphill from that location. And it's a little fuzzy, which is why it kind of, you get a big fuzzy effect. And this, we have our water flow analysis, and we even have a catchment analysis layer, which you'll see in another video, another example. But the upslope area is a nice way of getting a sense of, hey, how much water generally is coming to this zone, or potentially to this zone. And there's probably small little things that can affect this, like trench drains and curbs and things like that. But generally, this talks about, potential for the amount of water, and could be used in different kinds of calculations. So, and it's a nice visual. We like it as a visual way to just understand generally, slope. So here you can see, for example, that this shape of the water flow coincides a bit with the coloration of that upslope area. You can see that as the water flows down and kind of back into this this depression, that we get a higher intensity of water or area kind of pooling in that zone. So that is our multi-channel layer analysis. You can input a surface here. You can also change this and input a mesh. So you would input a mesh. Oh, sorry, that's the boundary. You would input a mesh here and maybe bypass the mesh to BREP, and if you're doing that. So have fun.